Hey, what's up guys? Thank you for tuning in to Loam where today we're going to be taking the brand new Cotic Rocket e-bike for its first ride. So stay tuned to learn all about this Shimano powered steel full suspension e-bike and find out how it's performed so far in this first ride report on Loam. Let's go. Whoa. So before we get into the first ride impressions, let's cut to a chat that I had with Sam from Cotic and learn a little bit more about the Rocket e-bike.
I'm Sam, I work at Cotic Bikes. I used to do the demos on the road pre-COVID, and now Cotic's grown, my role's changed a little bit, so more on the sort of sales side of things. Typical thing of any small business, there's no such thing as a job description, do a bit of everything really, yeah, but mostly kind of sales, yeah.
Were you involved in the development of the Rocket e-bike?
Yeah, we've all had a hand in it really. Obviously Si has most of the, does all the most of the design work, but you know, it's such a big project for us, we all had to have a hand in it, so yeah, I've done a fair amount of test riding on it, and yes, it's been really exciting. Yeah.
Plenty of miles out here in the Peak District, your local playground.
That's it, yeah. Find the hills that we'd normally come and do 1 or 2 laps of on a ride, and then come and do 7 or 8 of them. You know, so.
Can you just give us the kind of top level specs of the new Rocket e-bike? You know, drive unit, battery options, and then like suspension travel and everything like that. What's it made out of? I guess is.
I mean, yeah, that's the big thing, isn't it? Really, it's made out of steel. It's probably the first sort of high performance steel electric mountain bike on the market. Yeah, Reynolds 853, mixture of Reynolds 853 and T45 tubing, which is like roll cage tubing from racing cars. Aluminium on the chainstay, a bit easier from the manufacturing point of view to use aluminium there. Steel on the seat stays. Steel, the motor yoke is the bit that we've put a lot of development into. So all the off-the-shelf parts that you could get, you know, from the frame building companies, they're really heavy kind of cast or forged parts which are just weigh an absolute ton. So ours is laser cut plate steel welded into place. So a lot of work goes into it, really intricate welding and all that sort of thing. It takes about 750 grams out of the weight compared to those off-the-shelf parts. So yeah, that's the big kind of thing that makes it, you know, light and rideable rather than just a big tank.
Say 750 grams you've saved.
That. Yeah, it is about just in that one part of the frame.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes a huge difference overall. So yeah, it's dedicated mixed wheel, so 29 front, 650 rear, 150mm travel at the rear. You can either run a 160 or a 150 fork. So the bike you've been riding there's got the Zeb at 160. Mine's on a 150, a little bit lighter. So the idea is that you can build it up kind of how you want. You know, if you want something to just cover big miles over the moors, you can put a lighter 150 fork on it. You know, so maybe lighter, faster tyres and just ride further than you normally would, or do what I would personally do, put a 160 Zeb on there, a 220 rotor, some sticky rubber, and go up the hard way and down the hard way. That's what I enjoy doing on them anyway. So.
Cool. And so you've got the Shimano EP801 drive unit on there, and in terms of batteries, you've obviously, I guess the internet has caused a bit of a stir.
Yeah, rattled a few cages on that one, but external battery. So there's many reasons why we've done external battery. A big one, to be honest, is again weight. So when you've got a down tube that has to hold the battery, it's then not really a tube, it's kind of a cradle, and it has to be so much stronger and heavier. So the kind of system that bolts on that the battery clips into, that and the battery itself is a lot lighter than the overall sort of, you know, tube and internal battery system. So again, takes weight out. That's the big thing.
Sorry to interrupt. Is part of that because with the steel getting down to like wall thicknesses to support the battery would be an issue, or?
Yeah, to do it in steel with an internal battery is like your tube would end up like, you know, this big, and it'd just be unusable, and you couldn't then weld it to the other bits of the frame. But given using the external battery allows us to keep the feel, the kind of classic Cotic feel in the bike. You're really kind of compliant. I mean, it's stiff where it needs to be, but if it's calm, it's compliant. It generates grip in a way that a lot of other bikes don't. You know, if you've ridden steel hardtails compared to a steel, you know, like a tough aluminium or a carbon hardtail, the steel hardtail is way more compliant, forgiving, grippy, and just has that lovely kind of spring and pop on the trail, which is what Cotic does. It's what we've always done. It's what everything from our hardtails do up to the enduro bikes do, and that's what we needed our e-bike to do as well. Mm-hmm. The other massive advantage of the external battery is that you can change it out in like 5 seconds. So if you know, the 418 watt hour that you've got on there is pretty light. So I've had the bigger one on mine, so 630, you know, bigger range. You know, you're not going to be near your car, just go and empty the battery. Or if you're somewhere where you're like parked at the bottom and just doing laps of a hill, get the lighter battery on your bike. It handles more familiar like a normal bike if that's what you're used to. You know, do 6 or 7 laps on that. swap it out at lunchtime when you're at the van for just another battery that's got full charge. Do it all again in the afternoon. You don't sacrifice, you know, handling characteristics and ride feel of the bike, just, you know, by having that system. So it's yeah, it's different. You know, rattle a few cages, like I say, but once you've actually you know, kind of owned it and, you know, live with it for a while, that those benefits really become much more clear and much more relevant in kind of the real world. So.
And those Shimano batteries are available in what is it, 418?
Yeah, 418, 504, which is the same physical size, and then the 630, which is a little bit bigger and a bit heavier. So yeah, you could own two different batteries. You know, you could have a big one and a little one. So yeah. All sorts of possibilities and flexibility with the bike.
Cool. And I mean, I think it's safe to say that people have been reacting or saying that it's outdated or like they don't like the look of it necessarily. I mean, looks are obviously personal preference.
Yeah.
To me, it's not that bad.
Well, this is the thing.
It's really not that bad, especially a lot of bikes now, people are using range extenders. There's not that much difference between.
I mean, it's not that much bigger than just a big water bottle. Yeah. And you wouldn't think anything of putting a big water bottle in your down tube.
Yeah, it's got nicer lines in the water bottle.
Yeah, and like out of the studio, once you're actually in the real world with the bike, I think it looks a lot better. It doesn't jar quite as much, and yeah, it's one of those things. You know, we've always been a little bit disruptive all the way through. So this is how Cotic started. You know, making hardcore hardtails before anybody else. And you know, when we brought out the Rocket 26 in 2012, the first kind of steel, you know, production steel full suspension bike, loads of people were like, "Oh, what do you want that for? What's the point in that?" And like, and you know, actually, people have kind of come around a bit now, and they're popular, and there's other brands doing it. And you know, the other thing is, you know, all the other steel brands out there can now do it. We've done it. We've done a steel e-bike with an external battery, so you're welcome.
There you go, steel brands. Yeah, and I mean, I will just say now, when you're on the bike going down the hill, you're not thinking about if your battery is inside the down tube or not. Like, it's irrelevant. It fades into the background, and you just have a good time. That has just been a brief overview of the specs. If you want to learn a little bit more, then do head to the website in the description below, where we'll cover all the nitty-gritty details. But anyway, let's drop in and get some more. Oh, it does just feel so lovely and kind of sunk in. Nice low BB. Okay, so my time on the new Cotic e-bike has been minimal. I've had one solid ride in the local trails of Win Hill in the Peak District next to where Cotic headquarters is. And it's certainly the trails that Cotic have used to help develop the bike, so it was obviously going to be the perfect testing ground. Sam from Cotic showed me around and showed me some really good trails, so it's been yeah, certainly a good, adequate first test to get a good impression for the character of this bike so far. But by no means this is a long-term review. I am hoping to welcome one of these into my testing stable to get many more miles on it and really report back on the long term. But yeah, for now we're going to talk about initial impressions. I think we should address the elephant in the room, or certainly the internet commenters. This is obviously a very different take on a 2024 modern e-bike. With that external battery, it's polarizing, absolutely, but it's not, when you're here, when you're next to it, it's not nearly as offensive as many people have made it out to be. I understand that it may not seem like the most modern take on the e-bike, but when you're on it and you're riding it, that just fades into the background, absolutely. And Cotic has many good reasons for why they've done this with the bike. From its modularity, you can easily have a couple of batteries that you can quickly swap out on the trail side. Through to the overall manufacturing, Cotic was able to really reduce the weight of this steel e-bike to a very, very comparable, very competitive weight overall. And yeah, the overall looks, to me, when you're standing dead side on to it, it's obvious that there's the big external battery in there. But when you're on the bike, when you're at different angles, it really doesn't look bad at all. It's really quite sleek how they packaged it. And yeah, obviously, if you're absolutely against that Shimano external battery system, then this is not going to be the bike for you. But if you're looking for something a little bit different, something made out of steel with its unique kind of handling characteristics, then I definitely would not be discounting this bike anytime soon. It's, yeah, definitely been a super fun bike to ride for this first ride review. And yeah, there's definitely not any major drawbacks aside from the, potentially looking like it's slightly outdated just based on that battery system. And then, it's obviously up to you to make your mind up about whether you're going to purchase this bike or not. But I would say stay tuned for the ride impressions, because certainly that should not be swaying your decision there. So, talking about the performance of the Cotic Rocket e-bike, it's certainly been a very enjoyable first ride. It really, when you get it onto the trail, any sort of doubts that you might have about the way that they've packaged the e-bike system quickly fade into the background, and what you're left with is an e-bike that is super fun to ride both up and down the hill. I've had an absolute blast taking it for its first ride, and certainly it is amongst one of the most fun e-bikes that I've ridden all year. There's no doubt about it. On the way up the hill, the climbing platform is absolutely solid. You obviously get the power of the Shimano system, which is one of the systems that people have been enjoying for many years, and it still works really well. It might not have the incredible high figures of the new DJI system, for example, but that's not necessarily what everyone needs. It gives you plenty of assistance to get up some absolutely disgusting climbs here in the Peak District. It delivers its power smoothly. It's proven reliability. It's definitely a solid system, and unless you are a rider who's just looking to drag race up the absolute steepest of climbs, it's going to give you more than enough assistance here. I tested it with a 418 watt-hour battery, and I've got 6 or so laps of a very steep, very slow rolling climb on Wind Hill here. It's been a almost 1,000-meter day. I've been exclusively using trail mode and getting plenty of assistance out of this system. So I'd say the range is very comparable with your sort of mid-weight SL plus, I guess, systems. But then, of course, you've got the optional bigger 600 and odd watt-hour battery, or the ability to swap out these when you're on the trail side or leave one in the van. So definitely, I don't think range is going to be too much of an issue for you. Of course, if you're a rider that's demanding a 800 or more watt-hour battery, then this is going to be not going to be able to offer you that. But for a lot of riders, being realistic, unless you're looking to spend all day on the e-bike on one battery using boost mode, then you're probably going to be able to get, certainly out of the 600 watt-hour battery, enough range to do you well. In terms of the geometry and the suspension platform, it's certainly a solid climber. Certainly on the slightly more efficient and firm side of things, it's not super comfortable and traction approach. It is more of an efficient platform that certainly if you're in the lower power modes means that you do get that little bit more support and that little bit better efficiency out of the system. But where the traction comes in is a kind of natural compliance of that rear end. It is just quite notable how the rear end is just able to kind of conform to that terrain a little bit more. Pretty cool, you can feel the rear end finding its way.
Yeah, it grips well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, this is so jaggedy, edges everywhere. And the rear wheel's just snaking its way through it. It's cool. It's certainly not a bike that you should be scared of trying to tackle technical and loose climbs. It's overall a very competent climber, as you'd expect from a Cotic bike and from an e-bike in general. On the way down the hill, and I was initially, I wasn't skeptical per se, but I was certainly interested to see how the steel and the kind of Cotic's general philosophy would translate into the performance on the way down. I was expecting the bike to maybe feel a little bit on the heavier side, given its overall construction, but the reality was that as soon as I dropped in with that 418 watt-hour battery, it feels every bit like an SL e-bike. It's very dynamic, can really dart from side to side, feels absolutely amazing on the corners, and still there's enough kind of support in the suspension, enough overall feelings of rigidity and reassuring kind of confidence to push it hard enough that I wasn't thinking once about if it was a fragile bike or anything like that. It just offered plenty of support, plenty of reassuring stability to push hard and attack the trails here in the Peak District, which I guess you'd expect given that it's been designed to tackle these trails, but Cotic's definitely delivered. Where it really impresses though is where it's kind of loose and awkward, and you know, the kind of square edge rocks and the off camber roots, where comfort and that general steel kind of compliance and feeling really does come through and benefit the overall feeling of the bike. Obviously this is just a first ride on trails that have been very slick and very difficult to ride, but at no point was I concerned or, you know, holding back my riding because of this bike. It just gave me a platform that made it really reassuring and made me confident just to push on hard and have a good time. And a good time it really was. It's been a super fun first ride review, and definitely I think Cotic has nailed it with the new Rocket e-bike in delivering a bike that is going to really talk to their customers and sort of suit their overall typical philosophies of how a bike should ride. But also, I think this applies to many people out there. It's going to be certainly a comfortable and confidence-inspiring bike to push hard on your local terrain wherever you are. So it's been a very enjoyable first ride on the polarizing, but I'd say certainly very awesome Cotic Rocket e-bike. Do let us know in the comments below what you think of this bike. Is this an approach that you kind of agree with, or is it not for you? Let us know, and if you do have any questions for Cotic, pass them on as well and we'll try to get some answers. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out more awesome content on awesome bikes like the Cotic Rocket e-bike. Thank you for watching. Catch you out on the trails. Whoa!